You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back! Pumped up. I hope people could hear me bouncing in my seat. I'm going to jump in with my third announcement, which should be my first, which is the reason I'm pumped up, which is that we've confirmed our live show. Whoop, whoop. It's going to be May 20th, which is not the date it's going to come out for y'all, but it's the date we're going to be doing it. Anyways, I'm real excited.
So we are going to release that as a regular episode,
Yes.
The recording.
Pending something horrible doesn't happen to the recording.
Or that the audio, or as long as the audio is worthwhile,
Yes.
You will get to hear that whole thing. There'll actually be a video. You can see some small snippets of it on our Facebook and Instagram at The Tales We Tell podcast. For our patrons, you can actually watch the full recording at patreon.com/thetales-we-tell. And that's for all of our regular $5 a month patrons. On top of that, you also get other bonus content, commercial-free listening, early access. Sometimes we'll send out stickers and love notes. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Yep. And eventually we're gonna...
I think we're also talking about doing a t-shirt giveaway or some sort of giveaway.
Yeah.
A merch giveaway. And if you can't be at the recording and you still want some merch, you should check out our Redbubble store at redbubble.com/thetales-we-tell. We've got a couple of different logos, and you can put that shit on everything. Kind of like, was it Frank's Red Hot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Put that shit on everything. Mm-hmm. Okay. My second announcement is something that was already pointed out to us, which some people might have already caught, which is that in last week's episode, Jarek missed a swear word about halfway through.
He's slacking. We're going to have to give him a pay cut.
I know. Which is really funny because I got the comment from Tim. He commented on our Patreon. And the comment was, he was like, Hannah says, oh, this episode's PG. And then at minute 58 or whatever, Katy goes, Sally fucking right! And I was like, oh, that's funny. I wonder what he's talking about. And then I actually listened to that episode, and I got to that point.
How'd we do? I haven't listened in a while.
Pretty good. So,
right,
yeah, so far. And I got to that point, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Sometimes I feel like we just black out through the episode.
Yeah, which that one was one where I felt like we had a lot of excited parts where we could have blacked out.
Also, by the way, Jarek, that's 2 crow noises you should have already hit, so.
Yeah. Yeah, please pay attention to that. And speaking of, the episode rating for today, I'm pretty comfortable saying is PG-13.
All right.
So, there is going to be some mild torture, but of the, like, medieval-esque time. It's technically going to be of the 16th century, 15th century.
At first, I thought you were going to say the adult humankind, and I'm like, that's the kind I can handle.
It will all be to and of adult humans. There will be no child torture.
Or animal
torture, yeah.
Good deal.
There actually was a description of a infant harming situation, and I said, I'm going to ignore that.
Choose not to report that.
Not important to this. Also, could have been a lie. Not important to the story.
All right.
Also, there's going to be, like, pretty brief mentionings of some sexual assault and pretty brief mentioning of abortion, if that's something that bothers you.
It could be triggering to some.
Yeah. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
Mm-hmm. Good call.
Also, I should say 15th century abortion, so I don't know if that changes things for anyone.
That does sound like torture, honestly.
Yeah, and again, no details there, just mentioning that it happens, and some people chose to have it happen. Okay, next I have a joke for you.
I also have a joke.
Oh, great! Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first, since you paused so much there. This is a bunch of dudes standing around taking hits off of a helium balloon to tell jokes with the high pitch. One of them said, the liberals are at it again. They're trying to change the Himalayas to the they-themalayas.
What does the balloon have to do with it?
It makes you talk in a high-pitched, squeaky voice, and it makes everything you say funny.
Okay.
So while, obviously I'm always, pro, use a person's preferred pronouns, but you need to be able to laugh at yourself, too.
Yes. Okay.
So.
The balloon part threw me off. I was waiting for a punchline with that, but good.
Yeah. I was just fully describing the scene.
I appreciate that.
The they, them, Himalayas.
That's how the Himalayas choose to identify.
Has anyone ever asked?
No, probably not.
Has anyone ever asked them Himalayas?
Them Himalayas. They, them Himalayas. We'll go for it. Well, my joke comes to us from Tony.
Awesome. Is it cow related?
Yeah, of course. Yes. All of Tony's jokes are cow related.
So it makes them so good. From
Tony. If a cow passes gas, isn't that just derriere? That one's so perfect. I don't know why I hadn't heard it before.
Well, also it's, derriere, French.
Yeah.
And we've got some French, right?
Yes. Katie has a French... I couldn't find...
I have a notebook.
Yeah, a little notebook. And I did my best handwriting, because sometimes I know my handwriting is... I don't think messy, but just hard.
Oh, still leaps and bounds better than mine.
Sometimes my letters look similar. All right, then one more thing before we jump in. I was going to read this last week, and then I was like, last week's episode's far too long. Remember 2 episodes ago when we talked about the UFOs?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how your reaction to meeting an alien would be very different from my reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Jarek is currently obsessed with ChatGPT. Do you know what that is?
Vaguely.
It's basically like a site where you ask like AI to write stuff for you.
Mm.
And it comes up with weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It can be fun. Like when we first discovered it, like you can ask it, like we had it write a story about each of us, and it was like Jarek and his celebrity crush and me and my celebrity crush. And Jarek's was way better. Mine, I swear I did mine 3 times, is with Pedro Pascal. Every single time he takes me to a fucking coffee shop and just has like a very like vanilla. And Jarek's, the one time he got Florence Pugh, I mean that's who he asked for.
Mm-hmm.
His started out in Paris at a casino. His got like a little bit steamy. And I was like, excuse me. The fuck do I keep getting taken to coffee shops? Anyways, I asked ChatGPT to write a story about us and some aliens.
Mm-hmm.
It's very short, so I'm going to read it to you and to the world. Okay, and you specify, like, obviously. It doesn't know these things about us. I told it. Okay. Hannah and Katy were out on a late-night walk, enjoying the cool breeze and chatting about their day, when they stumbled upon an alien spacecraft. They both froze in shock, staring at the strange object before them. As they stood there, a door on the spacecraft opened, and 2 alien beings emerged. I forgot about this part. They had long, Keanu Reeves-like hair and big, black, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to stare right through the girls. Katy was amused by the sight of these aliens, but she knew she had to be careful to not offend them. She tried to hide her amusement and put on a serious face, but the sight of their long hair and big eyes kept making her giggle.
Accurate.
Hannah, on the other hand, was terrified of these beings. She couldn't believe what she was seeing and felt like she was in a nightmare. Also accurate. The way they tried to act human only made her more frightened. I love that it just puts in these parts. Like, they haven't done anything to try to act human.
Well, I mean, no, that's something that you made a comment about, how they mimicked walking.
Yeah, I do hate that.
It did upset
But
you.
I did just tell it I'm scared of them because they try to act human, and it didn't put in any context for that. The aliens approached the girls and began speaking in a language they couldn't understand. Katy tried to communicate with them, but they didn't seem to be getting anywhere. Hannah was shaking with fear, and she couldn't bear to stay there any longer. She grabbed Katy's arm and pulled her away from the aliens, running as fast as she could. Katy was torn between her curiosity and her concern for her friend, but she knew they had to get away. They ran until they were out of breath, which would be like 1 block for me.
So to say, like, 20 feet? Cardio is not my thing. Give me weights all day.
And they collapsed on the ground. Accurate. As they caught their breath, they looked up at the sky, trying to make sense of what had just happened. They both knew that their lives would never be the same again. Meanwhile, the aliens are like a block away from us.
You guys can see them still, right? They're just like huffing and puffing over there. And now they're looking up at the stars like, no, we're still here. Haven't taken off yet. Do you want to chat some more?
I imagine it like one of those scenes that always comes up in movies where like the characters are trying to like get over a brick wall or something, and then it turns out you could just like walk around it. I imagine that would be like a really dramatic running scene for us, and then we collapse and we're looking at the stars and you zoom out and the aliens are just right over there. Just wondering who else they should talk to, because it's obviously not us. Oh, okay. Well,
that was delightful.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It was very pleasant.
All right. Well, you ready for some French stories?
Oui.
Okay. So today I am going to tell you about the poison affairs.
The poison or the poisson?
Listen.
Poisson is fish, but it looks like poison.
Oh. And I will go ahead and say there are like books written on this, right? So I'm obviously not going to go into tons of detail. I'm going to go into detail on what I find to be the most interesting part, which is the first part.
Bring it on. All
right. Well, your first French word is the name of this lady.
Marquise de Brinvilliers.
Yeah, great. That's her married title. Her name is Marie Magdalene d'Aubray.
Okay.
I'm assuming I'm saying her last name right. I'm not going to ask for correction. Okay, so Marie, as I'm just going to call her because that's easiest. She was born July 22nd, 1630, to a fairly wealthy and prominent family. But she didn't really have the happiest life or upbringing.
As many women in that time probably did not.
Correct, yeah. She was sexually assaulted at the age of 7, possibly by one of her brothers. And then she was married off at the age of 21 to Antoine Gobelin, who was the Marquis de Brinvilliers, whatever. The Marquis.
Brinvilliers.
Yeah, thank you.
As best I can guess.
So eventually her and Antoine had 7 children. Notice I did not say they had 7 children together. They just had 7 children. 3 of them belonged to Antoine.
Okay.
It's fine. I mean, they raised the 7 of them.
Did they belong to Antoine and Marie?
They belonged to Marie. She birthed them.
No, I mean the 3 that you said belonged to him. Okay.
Yes.
Because I didn't know if he was having extramarital affairs.
I think he was, but none of his children.
He never claimed any of those offspring.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I did see it mentioned that he had been unfaithful, but like, I assume just because this story, Marie is not obviously blameless, as we will see, but in many stories where they paint the woman to be just like this evil villainess, a lot of times I tend to think, but was her husband freaking out on her a little bit? Are you sure he was just like not, just a little bit not great?
There's 2 sides to every story.
Yeah. So Antoine one day just decides to introduce Marie to one of his army buddies. And I think I wrote his name down too.
Godin de Saint-Croix?
Yeah. He was a captain. So Captain Godin de Saint-Croix. And Marie and Godin began having an affair. Meanwhile, Antoine is probably also having an affair, but also gambling away all of their money. And Marie is a smart girl, and so she begins to separate her wealth from Antoine's wealth. I don't know how you do that, but apparently you could. But apparently that was also, like, basically the equivalent of divorce. And so it was like a big no-no in 15th century French society. And also she wasn't like super discreet about her affair with Godin. People kind of knew they were seeing each other. And then it also like wasn't, I guess, a secret that she was trying to like distance herself from her husband financially.
Theirs was a marriage of probably political or financial or just whatever. Convenience. A marriage of convenience. One of my favorite tropes.
So
I actually just started a marriage of convenience today.
Ooh.
I'm very excited. Real quick. I cannot recommend it yet because I'm only a few chapters in. But it's about a lumberjack. I mean, he works for like a lumber company in Maine, but he's also getting into, lumber sports. You know, like axe throwing, wood cutting, climbing. And the book is called Would You Marry Me? WOOD.
Nice.
So I'll report back later if it's a good one or not. But it's a brother's best friend / arranged or marriage of convenience.
Ooh.
Like, so excited.
Okay.
It's two of my favorite tropes.
Nice.
Proceed.
Okay. So Marie's father is not happy about her having an affair and also her trying to become independent of her husband.
How dare she?
I know, right? I'm like, how dare she try to be happy?
How dare she try to have some sort of financial stability for her 7 children?
I know!
While her husband is gambling their future away.
I know. Let Marie do her thing. So, her father uses his wealth and power to have Godin arrested and thrown in prison.
No.
He's only in prison for 6 weeks, and apparently prison wasn't super bad for people of his stature. It was, I mean, not great, but like not awful. But Marie would later say of this event, quote, "If Saint Croix had not been put in the Bastille, perhaps nothing would have happened." Dun, dun, dun.
Ominous.
I know, right? Like, what a great lead-in for this story. For a story called The Poison Affairs. All right. So while imprisoned, Godin allegedly met and befriended a man named Guido Exili, who was an Italian chemist working for Queen Christina of Sweden. And Guido was allegedly known to be an expert in poisons. I say allegedly because, like, there's a good chance he wasn't into poisoning or poisons.
Well, they always say that poison's a woman's weapon.
This is true. But I think
because that's work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Because if you murder someone violently with,
there's a lot of
a gun or an axe or a knife or whatever, that's blood.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cleanup.
Yeah. And as we will see,
women already clean up enough.
Yeah. As we'll see, if you just time it correctly, like, no one's going to ask questions about poison.
Yep.
But I think this was kind of at the time where, like, if you were, like, a pharmacist, people would be like, he dealt with poisons. Like, people would be like, Shelton dealt with poisons. He knew a lot about poisons. It's like, well, technically, yeah, he does. He knows a lot about other stuff that's not poison.
You should take this because it'll help you, but you should not take this because it'll kill you.
Yeah.
Or, you should take this, but don't drink grapefruit juice.
Yeah.
Because it will kill you.
Yeah. I actually listened to an episode of Sawbones about grapefruit juice. I also, speaking of this episode and your husband, have texted your husband so much this weekend about stupid medication.
You've probably texted him more than I have. Granted, he's been off all weekend, so I can just talk to him.
Well, I actually told him today that I called my mom last night because I felt bad for texting him so much. And I called my mom about a question about this medication, and she was like, I've never heard of that. You should text your pharmacist. And I was like, man, I don't want to bother him anymore. He's probably at home with his wife and child. Anyways, but one of the things he told me was essentially, don't take this other medication with this because that will be poisoned. So, your husband knows about poison.
Yes, he does.
essentially, your husband is Egidio Exili.
All right.
Okay. So, Egidio / Katy's husband. The only reason that he was in prison was because Louis XIV, aka the king, was suspicious about why he was in France, because Sweden and France were not on good terms. And he, showed up in France, and the king was like, suspicious.
It's like the equivalent of a watch list, only way worse. Like, we're going to watch you from prison.
From prison, yeah. And so, allegedly, while they were in prison together, Egidio began teaching Godin about the art of creating and probably using poisons. So, when he gets...
Seems like a good life skill.
I know, it does. Well, Godin also thought that, because when he gets out of jail, he just started an alchemy business. Casual. Mm-hmm. I love that you can do that. He's like...
Hey, anyone wants to turn, stuff into gold all the time, so why not?
That was actually one of his goals, was just turning base metals into gold.
Yep, that's the pinnacle of alchemy. Like, they branched out and tried to do other things, but the main purpose of the study of alchemy was basically turning iron into gold or other stuff into gold.
How'd that work out for that field?
It didn't.
Oh! Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
You can't do that.
That's
not how elements work.
I took that part out because it was boring and useless to the story. The fact that was one of his goals that he didn't succeed in.
Well, I added it back in and summed it up
go.
beautifully. Moving on.
Yeah. So, Godin starts an alchemy business basically as a front to play with poisons. It was also a way for him to get the licenses and equipment that he needed, again, to just play around with poison. And he was not yes, he was trying to make gold, but he's other than that...
I'm trying to do these things, and if I make gold, then cool. But
yeah.
If not, I've still made these other things.
Yeah. But he wasn't trying to, really make anything else. Other than that, his goal was, let me make deadly things.
Gold is a heavy metal, and...
That's true.
Could be deadly.
He probably didn't know that, though.
I mean, there was that one episode of Game of Thrones. That one guy died by gold.
Oh, you're right. Mm-hmm. Ooh, and that would
Golden Crown.
That would play nicely with the torture that we're going to get into.
Excellent. I can't wait.
I mean, no one... It just kind of seems like it would go with it. Mm-hmm. No one dies that way.
That's fine.
So, Godin's doing this, and he's like, hey, you know who I think would be into this?
My girlfriend?
My girlfriend, Marie. And guess what? She's really into poison.
Hell yeah.
The stuff, not the band.
Why not both?
Don't think they were around.
Bummer.
I know. So now they're this power couple who's just doing a bunch of stuff with poison. I actually realized when I rearranged my notes that I took this part out. But one of the things they were doing was taking poison. So Godin, one of his goals was to create an odorless, tasteless trace.
Iocane powder.
Okay, yeah.
Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. Basically an untraceable poison.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of did. And so then him and Marie would test it by putting it into, cakes and cookies and stuff. And then they would take them to a local public hospital and give them to patients. And watch them die.
Another reason to be terrified of hospitals.
Oh, yeah. They think their only motive was just, the thrill of watching them. And then they think Marie was, kind of figuring out dosages by,
Well, maybe they figured, if you're in the hospital, your chances of getting out of the hospital are already pretty slim. Let's just
Although, would you say that a hospital patient would be a good... That's not, a good baseline for
It's not,
figuring
because
out.
You don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Just like we said, one medication for you, if you had, some issue thing, might save you versus kill another person.
Yeah.
Blood thinners would be great for somebody with certain issues, but terrible for someone else.
Yeah.
Is it hemophiliacs are the people that, once they start bleeding, they have a really hard... They can't clot?
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, you wouldn't want to give a hemophiliac blood thinners, but...
Probably true.
We'd probably be okay if we accidentally took one.
Yeah, probably.
That's another question you gotta check Shelton, I guess.
Yeah. This really would have been a good episode to bring him in on. All right. So another thing about Godin is that he was kind of dating Marie for her money. So we don't love that. And she was running out of money very quickly because Godin is like spending all of her money. So the fact that she's running out of money, combined with the fact that her father had gotten her boyfriend thrown in jail, led Marie to the decision that she was going to kill her father. So,
I thought she was going to kill the boyfriend.
No, she likes him. He's cute. And I don't know. I don't know what else he's got going for him. He's probably cute. So, in early 1666, she begins poisoning her father. And by September, he was dead. And this is what I mean by good timing. No one suspected anything because he had gout. And they were just like, probably the gout. And back then, if you already had some kind of illness and you die, they don't do an autopsy. And they're just like...
succumb to it.
Yep. They're like, oh, well, old Murray's dad died. Forgot her name already. Daubrey. Old man Daubrey died. So she inherits some money from him, but like, obviously not a lot because he has other kids. She's got 2 brothers and at least 1 sister. So she gets some of his money, but Godin quickly is spending that. And by 1670, she is deeply in debt again. And so she decides to kill her 2 brothers.
Cool.
Yeah. So she has 2 brothers, Antoine and Francois. We're not going to feel that bad because we definitely think one of her brothers probably raped her as a child. Don't know about the other one, but I don't know.
Guilty by association. Maybe one of them was standing to watch while the other one did it.
One of them is younger than her, so I'm like, I don't know. So Antoine was killed first, pretty like easily, and then Francois was next. They were both poisoned over a period of time by a servant that Godin had hired named, that's your next one, I think, I'm going to say La Chaussée. Chaussée. So Francois' death was significantly more drawn out and like suspicious than Antoine's. He was just like harder to kill, I guess. And so they did an autopsy and they were like, ooh, looks like poison. But they didn't have any suspect. They're like, oh, who would want to kill Francois? No one. So I guess we're just going to put down cause of death poison, but
we're not going to investigate. Like,
we have no idea who would do it. And Murray's just like, yeah, that's terrible. I have no... Who would
Did they have wives and families?
Yes. Well, at least Antoine had a wife. I'm not sure about Francois. And I know this because immediately after killing them, Marie began plotting to kill her sister and her sister-in-law. Her reasons were because, A, she had not really inherited very much money from her brothers. Her sister was... This is great. Her sister was unmarried, and Marie thought that she was giving too much of her money to charity. And Marie was like, I'm going to get that money one day.
I'm going to get you no good, do-gutting scum.
She's like, if you give it all to charity, then when I kill you, there won't be any for me to inherit. So I'm going to kill you. And then,
oh, Marie.
I know. I'm like, Marie, you're coming off the rails now. Like, your plans are flawed. And then the sister-in-law was Antoine's wife, and she had just inherited Antoine's fortune. And so Marie was like, mine.
And mine.
Yeah. However, before Marie could carry out this plan, she had a little hitch in the plan, which is that Godin died. So he died on July 30th of 1672. There was a popular story surrounding his death that he accidentally poisoned himself, which would have been hilarious. In fact, he died.
Fitting.
He did not. He died of a chronic illness. So, whatever. But when he died, he was in a lot of debt. And so, because of this, his belongings were essentially seized by the state.
So all of his poison-making supplies.
Yes. So they seized all his stuff, and they're, like, sorting through this. And, like, he's not a suspect for anything. So they're going through his things, and they find a document that he had written titled My Confession.
Oh, gosh.
And they're like, oh, you know what? This is probably really personal. We shouldn't look at it. So they burned it.
Oh, my gosh.
They just burned it.
What?
Yeah. The subtitle of this episode is going to be why you should not write down all of your crimes.
Or go for it because they'll think it's personal, or put it in a diary. Start your confession with Dear Diary, and they'll be like, it's too personal.
It's too personal and sacred. Well, just wait. Just you wait. So after they burn his confession, they keep looking, and they find a mysterious red leather trunk with a note attached to it. The note is dated May 25th, 1670, and it states that in the event of his death, the trunk should be given to Marie. And it also says, quote, that all that it contains belongs to her and concerns her only. Or concerns her alone. Whatever.
Okay.
So, even though they just were like, this confession thing is very sacred and we should respect his privacy,
this belongs to a woman. We don't have to respect that privacy.
Yeah, they're like, we're just going to take a little peek inside of this really quick. So...
I'm mad now.
This is ridiculous. So, they took a little tiny, teensy little peek inside the red trunk, and they saw a bunch of unknown substances and powders and vials. And they were like, this is suspicious. So they decided that they were not going to give the trunk to Marie and that they were going to investigate a little bit further. So the trunk goes into custody. Meanwhile, remember our friend La Chazé?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone obviously has heard that Godin has died. So La Chazé stops by and tells the authorities, he's like, hey, Godin owed me some money, and I am here to collect that money. Which they were probably like, yeah, he owes everyone money. That's what we're here for. And then La Chazé says, oh, also, my former employee, Francois Daubray, also owed me some money, and the paperwork for it should be with Godin's things. Which the authorities are now like, I'm sorry, your employer, the guy that was just poisoned, owes you money? So La Chazé then hears them talking about this mysterious red trunk with like suspicious stuff in it, and he gets visibly uncomfortable and is like, oh, just kidding, I have to go, never mind, no one owes me anything, and leaves. And they're like, that's suspicious. And he gets put on a list, essentially. Marie also has heard about the discovery of this trunk and has tried several times to basically demand that the trunk be given to her. But can you guess what happens when a woman goes and demands for something that's rightfully hers?
They're not giving?
Yeah, they just say no. So they deny her the trunk multiple times, and so she eventually flees the country because she kind of knows what's coming. Like, she knows what's in the trunk and that it will implicate her. Also in the trunk, which I guess the police investigate at this point, are a bunch of letters between Marie and Godin that are essentially like, hey, remember when we poisoned all those people?
Let's poison some more. Here's a plan for more
yeah,
poison.
Here's the plan of how we're going to poison my father. Here's the plan on how we should poison my brother. Let's get La Chazé to help us poison my brothers on these dates. So, like, extremely detailed accounts of how they did stuff. So the police are like, these are our two suspects. So Marie has fled the country. La Chazé has not. So they find him.
He should have taken La Chaussée out of the country. Because I just looked it up to double check. La Chaussée, essentially, I think is like a highway or a thoroughfare, or, you know.
Nice.
So
I was like, I don't get that joke.
he should have hit La Chaussée. And I guess, it's more like a code name.
Yeah, I think it was.
Like, this is the transport method. Like, this is how we're transporting the poison to Francois.
Yeah. He did have a real name, and I didn't write it down. Because, I'm already having a hard enough time with the names.
Well, at first I was like... Also, the way it was written, I was like, La Chaussée. It's feminine. Keep saying he. I wonder what that means, and that's why I Googled it.
Smart cookie.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's arrested, and he's found guilty. They don't really have regular court at this point. So, they find him guilty, and then they sentence him to torture and then execution. Because they would do this thing where they would torture someone who was already found guilty in hopes of extracting more information from them before they executed them.
See, if that was me, I'd be like, you already found me guilty. You don't need to torture me. Like, you're already going to execute me. I mean, nothing I can say is going to make you not kill me or kill me faster, so here you go.
Yeah.
Also, I don't mind ratting people out because you're going to kill me before they can, so...
Yeah.
Just kidding, I'm no snitch.
Well, as we'll see later, like, if you don't have any information to give, and they're just like, we're just going to torture you until you give us names.
You just start making stuff up.
You're like, I can either lie or I can tell you nothing. So which do you want?
That's what they did a lot at the Salem witch trials is...
Yeah, that's true.
They would just make stuff up. Throw other people under the bus, get the suspicion off of them.
I know. So they tortured him with a device, which is your next fun keyword, which...
Protoquins?
Okay. It's, I guess pronounced the way it sounds.
Not my best guess.
Okay. So it's a device where your legs are trapped between planks, and then the planks are tightened with wedges, and your legs are slowly crushed. And I assume at the same time someone is, like, yelling at you to give them names. La Chaussée didn't give up any new information, but he did eventually confess to his part in killing Marie's brothers, because he hadn't confessed up until this point. And then he was executed on the breaking wheel, which is essentially another torture device. It's when you're strapped to a wheel, like spread eagle style, and then you are beaten with iron bars, essentially breaking all of your bones and probably your internal organs. And then you're just left to die. Sometimes I think they would, like, strangle you to death if they were feeling, like, merciful. But I think the typical way was they just kind of left you there to...
Die of internal bleeding?
I guess, yeah. If you were lucky. Hopefully you weren't just dying of, like, the elements with a bunch of broken bones.
Why were humans so...
I don't know. It's like, y'all couldn't just behead people? I mean, that's at least humane.
I mean, they were still using the guillotine then. Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. So, meanwhile, Marie has fled to England, and then she kind of continues to hop around Europe for the next 4 years. And she's living off a small allowance from her sister, the charitable one. The one that she had wanted to kill. And eventually she ends up in a convent in Belgium, and this is where she is discovered and arrested.
And what happened to her 7 children at this point, too?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I kind of forgot about them.
Did they become wards of the state at some point?
I guess. Maybe they're with her sister. Oh, no, her husband's still alive.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, she didn't kill him, so probably with him. So she's arrested, and they search her little room in the convent, and they find a document that she has written titled My Confession.
But hers wasn't too personal, was it?
Oh, no. They were like, oh, you know what? We made a big mistake last time when we burned. Oh, my gosh. When we burned Godin.
Golly, we sure learned our lesson.
So they read through hers, So, in her confession, she admitted to killing her father and brothers. Or, like, poisoning them.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
Being an accessory.
Yeah. Planning their poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
She admits that she tried to kill her husband and her oldest daughter. I don't know why she tried to kill her daughter. She did say she poisoned her husband several times, but then she, like, felt bad about it and just, like, nursed him back to health. She was like, I guess it's fine. She says in her letter
Makes me think of The Sixth Sense, the little boy whose stepmother, I think it was, poisoned him.
Yeah, that's... that movie is still so chilling.
And if I spoiled that for anybody...
That movie is so old, it's fine.
Yeah.
She confesses that 2 of her children belong to Godin. One of them belonged to a cousin of hers. She doesn't say... There's, like, one that's unaccounted for. I don't know who the father of that one is. She says that she had several other pregnancies, but she had taken drugs to induce, I would say, miscarriages, but she calls them abortions. She says that she had been sexually molested as a child by her brother. And then this is a quote, and we can interpret this however. Quote, that she committed incest 3 times a week, perhaps 300 times in all. So I don't know if that means she was, like, sexually assaulted by a family member 3 times a week, or if she was, like, willfully...
I think if she committed incest, I think that implies that she was a willing participant.
Yeah. I don't know. So she would later, like, kind of denounce this whole confession, say that she was delirious with fever when she wrote it. But that didn't matter because everyone read it anyways. Most people actually interpreted this confession as evidence that she had been, like, deviant ever since she was a child, rather than as today we would see that, like, oh, the sexual abuse that she suffered as a child probably factored into her behavior and psychology as an adult. Which is part of why I wonder the wording of the incest, if it was, like, if she was experiencing continued abuse, or if it was, like, I wish we had the letter to read, you know, and just see, I don't know.
Yeah. No, because like I said, I feel like committed incest implies, you know, guilt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if this is something that started when she was 7.
Yeah.
Like, and even if this is, like, you know, we're not even certain that this is her brother. It could be like, oh, my brother assaulted me that one time.
Yeah.
And then this other family member and I have had this relationship. Like, one of the issues, golly, children who are assaulted at such a young age don't fully understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they know it's wrong and they feel that they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And they still feel guilty even though this is something that was done to them.
Yeah. That's what
so,
I was
like,
thinking.
Yeah, she might be like, yeah, I didn't want to be part of this. This happened to me, but I committed incest.
Yeah.
Because it's a sin and you're all religious right now.
Yeah. Or, I mean, she could have been coerced into some kind of relationship. And even if she was, quote, a willing participant, if she was a child and the other person was an adult, that's assault. I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay. The point was, she had a troubled childhood.
Yes.
Okay. So, Connor, we don't have any beers here.
What?
We don't have any beers.
Oh, I'm just trying to return your jumper cables.
Oh, well, we're recording the podcast, you dick.
Wait. So I called and you have to drink, right?
I was about to say, I'm like,
I feel like you're here in my
I've
house.
been looking outside for him as soon as it started ringing. And I was like, I don't see him. But then I heard him outside.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hear him somewhere. Is he outside?
Mm-hmm. He's right outside the door.
Oh, good thing it's locked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's locked.
Okay, well, too bad.
Alright, I'll set these beers at your door. That you have to chug according to the rules.
That rule might have been erased.
I don't know about that. I see it on the board. I can see it from here.
You can't.
No, I can't. One beer is semi-warm, one beer is cold. So, someone's getting a shaft on this one.
Dibs on the semi-warm one.
Okay.
Also, your jumper cables are by the beers.
Why are you leaving them outside? Where's my husband?
Because you're not unlocking the back door. I'm at the back.
Where's your brother?
Do you like my scarf?
Yeah. You look like a weird car Jesus.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, maybe they're all shaking.
Oh, good grief.
Oh.
I've had enough to drink today.
Who wants which one?
I don't care.
You're the... I don't care.
I'm not gonna. I'll
One's
drink it
semi-cold,
really.
one's
I'll
really
drink it
cold.
really fast, but I'm not gonna shotgun it.
I haven't had beer in like several months.
Who's gonna say right or left? Right or left?
Left.
Right.
Ooh, mine is ice cold. Where is Jarek?
Gotta go. See you guys later. You better chunk those. Video proof required.
Okay, goodbye. Okay, so Marie is brought back to France and also given a wonky trial. She is also found guilty and also sentenced to torture and then execution.
All right.
So she gets water torture. You know what that is?
Well, I think there's different variations of it, but essentially, water is poured over your face, like you're held down, sometimes upside down, or your head is held back, and it simulates drowning.
This is a more specific kind.
Okay. Well, there's different variations, like I said.
This is like creepily more simple.
Oh, is this where they just dunk your head in and hold you underwater for a while until you're like close to drowning?
No, this is when you're just forced to drink large quantities of water.
Wow.
I know, right?
But I actually have made myself sick from water. But it's called water poisoning, essentially. And you're just overhydrated to where...
Yeah, you're like diluting your...
Yeah, like all of your natural like salts and electrolytes and everything, you've essentially peed them all out.
Yeah.
And I have literally like had taken a sip of water and then immediately just thrown it up. And I'm like, huh.
Oops. Yeah, so she is forced to drink 24 pints of water, which is 3 gallons. So she is stripped naked and tied down in like an arched position. So like the other part of it is she's put into like a really physically uncomfortable position. And then they use a cow's horn that is like a funnel. And they pour 2.5 pints down her throat at a time. And then they pause.
Arched how?
I couldn't quite tell. I think she's like on her back. I don't know. She's like on her back, maybe like there's something like underneath her back and her ankles are tied down and her arms are tied down. So she's like on her back, but like there's something under her back. So I don't know.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to
I know
dwell.
what you're talking about. I pictured it, but it's still just... Anyway, continue.
Yeah. And so they're pausing to ask questions, but she had given, like, she goes into this torture and she's like, I'm going to go ahead and give you my full confession right here. She basically said what you said, which is, you guys don't have to torture me. I'm going to go ahead and, like, give you my full confession now because I know you're going to execute me. So she gave a full confession already. So every time they paused to ask a question, she's like, I don't have anything else to tell you. I already told you everything. And at one point she was like, I'm not going to, I think she said, I'm not going to forfeit my soul and falsely accuse someone. I've already told you everything. So they did that. And then the next day they took her out and she was beheaded. So she did get like a fairly,
Good for her.
fairly humane.
I mean, good for them for...
Yeah, for not,
making it quick.
Yeah. So she's beheaded and then they burn her body.
Because witch.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, there's some witchcraft in here, don't worry. And then allegedly, right before her confession, Marie had said, quote, out of so many guilty people, must I be the only one put to death? Half the people in town are involved in this sort of thing, and I could ruin them if I were to talk.
Ominous.
I know. So, this caused a lot of hysteria, if you will. Specifically...
Satanic panic?
Yes. Yeah, very much. Poison panic. Something like that. Specifically because Marie was of noble birth. She was also, like, really beautiful. There was a lawyer that had tried to defend her, or, like, offered to defend her while she was in prison. And his argument was literally, like, she's so pretty. She's rich.
I'm too pretty to kill people.
Like, it's unthinkable that she would do this. Like, of course she didn't. And they were like, that's not... she
not
literally confessed already. Because she had already confessed, and she's, like, the prettiest, you know, already, like, noble. That meant that, like, no one was above suspicion. So now people are, like, looking at all these deaths that hadn't really seemed suspicious before, and that now they're like, oh, but was it?
Like, does anybody really die of gout?
Yes, they're like, what even is natural causes, or, like, whatever the made-up names we have? I mean, to be fair, they made up, I mean, the causes of death back then are kind of weird.
Yeah.
Then we're like, he died of swelling, or he died of his heart stopped. It's like, okay, yeah. And then Louis XIV, who was already extremely paranoid about assassination attempts, now becomes extra paranoid about poisoning.
I mean, throughout history, nobles and royals have always had, like, their taste testers. And I feel like some of their taste testers have had taste testers. I'm already out. I gotta pour more before I can take a drink.
Katie, this is my first fun fact. It's literally the next thing I'm about to tell you.
Tell me.
Okay. It's a fun but not true fact.
Okay.
Okay. Are you familiar with vichyssoise? Vichyssoise?
I know the name.
So it's a chilled French soup.
Ah, yeah.
It's like a potatoes and leek kind of soup. All right. So there was myth that the reason vichyssoise is served cold is because by the time it got to the king, it had gone through 2 taste testers. Or it had gone through his taste tester and then the taste tester's taste tester. Or, like, tester. Not whatever. All right. The fact here is that vichyssoise was actually invented in the early 20th century. So not back then. It was invented by a chef named Louis Diot. And it's served chilled because he wanted to make a chilled soup.
It's so simple.
And he took inspiration from the way his mother would cool down their leek and potato soup in the summers by adding cold milk. Which sounds real gross to me, but...
I like potato leek soup, but I like that soup like I like all my other soups. Piping hot.
Yeah, I mean, potato leek soup sounds really good to me.
It's very good.
But I'm also imagining the sensation of when you are expecting a warm substance and it is cold.
I love soup.
I also love soup.
But only in the winter.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, chili is soup adjacent, right?
Yeah. Oh, chili.
And I'll eat that throughout the year, but... Yeah, no, I love soup, but only when it's hot.
Yeah, cold soup. Cold soup is like cereal.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, if you want cold soup, eat cereal.
Eat a bowl of cereal. All right. So, in 1677, Louis XIV opened up a formal investigation into this which, God help me if I were ever a monarch, because my anxiety would just be like, open up an investigation on whatever my latest trigger is, because it's important.
I feel like I'd be a terrible ruler.
Oh, I 100% would, for the very reason I just stated. So he appointed Lieutenant General of the Paris Police, Gabriel Nicolas de la Reynie, to head the investigation, and Reynie began investigating / arresting alchemists. Arrestigating. Oh, what a great word. He began arrestigating alchemists and fortune tellers. So, here we go.
Witch hunt.
Yeah. So, the first of these arrests happened in February of 1677. So, just like right off the bat. A 36-year-old widow named Magdalene de la Grange In 1676, the elderly lawyer with whom she had been living married her. And then she and the elderly lawyer went to a notary where the lawyer, like her husband, had a marriage contract drawn up that left all of his money to her. And then shortly after that, he died. And so his family, who was expecting all of his money, was big mad. And they filed a complaint. And they basically accused Magdalene of committing fraud. They said that they basically said the guy that she went to the notary with was not the lawyer husband. It was some other guy pretending to be him. And then they also accused her of poisoning her husband. So she gets arrested for that. And then while she's in prison, she tries this like fairly elaborate scheme where she's like, hey, I know about this plan to try to assassinate the king. Y'all should let me out because I know this stuff. But then, like, she can't ever back it up. And they're like, no, you have to stay in prison. Then in December, a 30-year-old man named Louis Vanens was arrested after he was heard boasting about being able to manufacture gold. So the alchemy thing, yeah. But then he was later seen with a large quantity of money.
So he suckered some other idiot into investing in his gold making.
So he's arrested.
I bet you're all wondering why I've gathered you here today. I want to tell you about a great opportunity. Let you get in on the ground floor.
Oh, gosh. He's arrested, and then, like, very quickly, friends and associates of his are arrested, including a blind man who had allegedly lost his eyesight in an alchemy accident.
It's possible.
Mistresses and girlfriends are arrested. In January of 1679, these are your two next names, just because I'm not 100% sure how to say them.
I would say Marie Vigoureux.
Uh-huh.
And Marie Bossy.
Bossy? Okay. So the two Maries.
Boss.
Marie Vigoureux was a fortune teller, and Marie Bossy...
Or Boss, because there's no...
Accent
on the E.
It's
been a while since I've been in a French.
That's okay. Both the Maries were widows. I don't know what the second Marie did for a living. The first one was a fortune teller. They were arrested because they had been overheard at a dinner party talking about poisoning. More specifically, Marie Boss had gotten drunk, and she said that she only needed to poison 3 more people and then she could retire.
Wow.
And someone at the party was like,
red flag.
I'm going to tell the police. So this kind of opened up the investigation into fortune tellers in general. And this is kind of when fortune telling becomes entangled with witchcraft. The two kind of become interchangeable. So fortune tellers would often supply clients with homemade remedies in addition to like regular readings.
I mean, it was like snake oil, of course, still, but take this tonic. It's a love potion.
Yeah. So my next thing is they sometimes offered love potions, but they would also sell like cosmetics and herbal lotions. This is my second fun fact. And this is what I would really love Shelton to start calling some things. Inheritance powder. Do you know what that is?
Is that a poison?
It's just another word for poison. Inheritance powder.
Hey, Dad. Don't listen to this episode. I'm gonna send you something in the mail soon. It's a little thing. It's called inheritance powder. It's just you sprinkle that on, and that helps build up your wealth for Walker, who's gonna inherit all your wealth one day, eventually, many days down the road, many years from now. So don't worry about it. Don't just get this one and
just do what the bottle says.
Listen to the next episode and just be on the lookout for that inheritance powder. I make that joke, just for everybody else listening who thinks I now have a very sick and twisted relationship with my dad. I do, but to be fair, he started the jokes first.
About dying.
Yeah.
Okay.
He, it was several years ago, he told me, he was like, oh yeah, I was outside, working on something. It was some electrical thing, dealing with live wires and everything. And he was like, at some point I looked down and I realized that I'm standing like ankle deep in a puddle of water. And I was like, man, if I touch the wrong wire, Katie's going to be rich. And these are the kind of jokes my dad and I make.
Oh, gosh.
But he also, this was before I got Jory.
Mm-hmm.
And then so, now, well, first for a while, the inheritance was going to Mira, the cat.
Uh-huh.
But then Jory came along and stole his heart. Now it's going to Jory, and I think it's probably going to get split between Jory and Walker.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I don't know, we haven't talked about it in a while.
Maybe you should. That's a good thing to sit down and talk about.
Yeah, just make sure, like, the cat's getting old. It's not worth to have her on the wheel anymore. Just Jory and Walker.
Does Olive get any of it?
Maybe. She gets a small inheritance.
Okay. All right. I'm just looking out for
Enough
her.
to keep her in booze for a while. A little booze hound. Olive is another dog.
Yes.
Listeners.
Everything we're talking about are animals except for Walker.
The critter.
Who is the critter who is in fact a human.
Mm-hmm. Did you see his onesie today?
Yes. I noticed that in the pictures from the
Park.
Oh, he's so cute.
The cutest critter in the forest.
I can't handle how cute, especially both of them together. Too much. All right, so as police are investigating more fortune tellers, so they're finding regular poisons such as arsenic, nitric acid, and mercuric chloride. Mm-hmm. But they also allegedly found some stranger ingredients. This is all one quote. So they find, quote, blobs of human fat, nail clippings, bone splinters, specimens of human blood, excrement, urine, and semen.
Fun.
Yeah, so just, a big old biohazard. One of the most famous arrests was on March 12th of 1679, which was Catherine Monvoisin. Whatever, your next one. You can read the next one.
Monvoisin.
Okay. And then Lavoisin?
Lavoisin.
Okay. So she,
like La Poisson? That's...
you're saying words that I don't know. La Poisson, like the fish?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
La Poisson.
Lavoisin.
If you just change the V for a P.
Does voisson mean something?
I don't know. It
Oh, okay.
might, but I'm just saying Voisson and Poisson are pronounced the same.
Oh, okay.
But also, as I mentioned, La Poisson.
Uh-huh.
If you imagine that's a P,
Uh-huh.
what does that look like in
Oh,
English?
yeah, you're right. Good call.
Poison.
I'm learning. Okay, so Lavoisin was a very well-known fortune teller with a very large and very loyal customer base. And she was arrested outside of her church, her good old Catholic church. Because although she dabbled in the occult, she was also known to be very pious. Mm-hmm. In addition to the above-mentioned offerings, Lavoisin also offered abortions to women who sought them. In 17th century France, women, as you might guess, had virtually no rights. It was not uncommon for them to seek out ways to free themselves from the oppressiveness of the patriarchy, which in this case was either poison for their husbands or like getting rid of a pregnancy that might get them in trouble, or might like bind them to some marriage that they didn't want to be in,
or would make them no longer maritable.
Yeah, exactly.
Marriage equality.
Yes. And I point this out because I don't know, like I feel like in a lot of these things this was like women looking out for women, and I feel like women were specifically targeted in this, and a lot of times it was specifically for these reasons.
Poison is a woman's weapon.
Yeah. And this one article pointed out that these potions, meaning the ones specifically for abortions, often had, quote, uterine origins, menstrual blood, or placenta, as if to liberate their users from the bindings of womanhood. And it mentioned that, like, that was something that, like, rubbed authorities the wrong way. Like, oh, blood, ew. Like, I mean, they were, like, basically practicing witchcraft. They were, like, prescribing spells and, like, doing things. And it did use, like, body parts and, like, animals and stuff like that. But essentially most of it was harmless. And most of the time it was women looking out for women.
It has the power, like pretty much everything in life, things only have the power that you give it.
Yeah.
It's like words only have the power that you give them.
Yeah.
These spells, these potions or whatever, you know, they're between the placebo effect, like, if you truly believe it, then, like, yeah, you might start seeing some things, or like, oh, drink this and have good luck.
Yeah.
You're automatically going to be put in a more optimistic mindset. You're going to be looking for, like, oh, wow, I found a penny on the ground. That's good luck. Or, oh, you know, I went to the grocery store and there was a spot real close to the door. What good luck I'm having.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's just you're optimistic because the power of positive thinking.
Yeah. Or the power of suggestibility.
Yes. Or just power of suggestion. Yeah. Like, that's all this is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
With some gross cocktails of body parts sometimes thrown in.
Yeah.
But, you know.
And, like, to be fair, I did read a lot. There were instances of, like, some people being poisoned. So, like, there was a little bit of light murder happening. But for the most part, it's harmless.
I might be guilty of some light treason.
So, La Voisin, like I said, she was arrested. She confessed. And she sang like a bird. She gave names of not only others who were, like, doing the same thing she was doing, she gave the names of all of her clients. So
I'm going down. You're all coming with me.
So your next one is names that I absolutely cannot pronounce. So I'm just going to let you... These are some clients of hers.
I'm going to guess Mademoiselle de Ulia.
Okay.
Or Ulette.
Sure.
Because it's the OE, like, oof.
Yeah.
Comtesse of Saison.
Sure.
And Duchess of Bouillon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was like a bouillon cube.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
That's why I said it like that. You don't know what bouillon is?
Also included on that list was the Duke of Luxembourg.
Nice.
The first one, that Mademoiselle, what's her face? She was
Mademoiselle de Oeuf.
De Oeuf, yeah.
No, Ulette is what I'm gonna. That's my guess.
Yeah. She was one of the king's former lovers, and also the mother of one of his children. So you can imagine that this was troubling for him. And then the most important customer that La Voisin named was your last one.
Madame de... Is that a P?
Yes.
Montespan?
Montespan?
What?
Montespan?
Montespan.
I tried to look up her first name, and it was even more hard to pronounce than her last one. Oh, what's my last one on there?
Duchess of...
Oh, yeah. I forgot about her. Yeah, hold on to her for a second. Okay, so... Madame de Montespan. So she was the king's most recent and most prolific mistress, and the mother of a bunch of his kids.
That's why you say prolific.
Yes.
Most fertile.
So La Voisin claimed that Montespan had come to her for love potions, and that she had participated in black masses that involved stripping naked and sacrificing babies. And all of this, she said, was to gain and keep the king's favor. And Madame Montespan had, in fact, fallen from the king's favor recently. She had been demoted to superintendent of the queen's household, which maybe not. Yeah,
That sounds like that's not a demotion. That's like a punishment.
I know. And then Louis XIV had made this next girlie, the Duchess
of Fontange.
Fontange. That sounds like a cheese. He had made the Duchess of Fontange his new mistress. But then in 1681, the Duchess of Fontange died. And it was
Of natural causes.
Yeah, of natural causes. And it was widely assumed that she had been poisoned. And, like, low-key assumed that she had been poisoned by his former mistress. But no one could prove it. So they were just like, oh, well. So La Voisin, like, confesses all of this stuff. She's burned at the stake in February of 1680. I know.
I'm ever murdered. Please don't let it be burning.
Ugh, I know. She said something similar to, or she kind of echoed what Marie said shortly before her execution, which is, quote, Paris is full of this kind of thing, and there is an infinite number of people engaged in this evil trade. But Montespan's involvement had been kind of like a shock to Louis XIV, because this whole time he had been vowing to, like, bring justice.
Yeah. Meanwhile, now
every
he's
case.
a victim of it. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, my affections for this woman are not true affection.
Yeah.
They were, bought
Yeah.
through by the devil.
And he had been, like, specifically saying, like, regardless of rank, I want everyone investigated. I want, like, everyone brought up, whatever. And then, like, basically his
Now his girlfriend.
So he, like, kind of took a pause and was like, I gotta think about it for a second. So he takes his pause, and then eventually he told La Rainey, the chief investigator, he's like, all right.
The arrestigator.
Oh, sorry, the arrestigator. He's like, all right, continue the investigation, but I want you to throw out all of the evidence against Montespan, whatever her name is. So that pause had kind of taken the fire out of everything. Mm-hmm. The, like, affair, not his affair, but the affair of the poisons. It officially continued until 1682, but it kind of started to die out at that point.
Well, it kind of feels like, for a while there, we were in, like, this frenzy of Hollywood bigwigs. Like, people were coming out. It seemed like constantly to accuse somebody else in Hollywood of, illicit behavior, especially, any kind of sexual abuse. And it felt like it was just, for, like, a couple of years there, it was just constant, like, some new Hollywood somebody said that other somebody did these horrible things.
Yeah. It's like, who's getting canceled this week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of died down.
Yeah.
It seems like, it's...
Well,
that doesn't mean that any of that behavior has stopped.
Yeah.
But all of the, most of the allegations were from, years to decades prior.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that was... It built off of each other. It was like one person came forward and that gave another person the courage to come forward.
Yeah.
And, like, with this...
Which is good.
Yeah.
That people are being held accountable for these things. And it also sets a precedent that, like, you shouldn't have to wait years to decades to come forward.
Yeah.
You need to do this right away.
Yeah.
And no matter who you are, you will be held accountable for these misdeeds.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, it's good. It's just a very similar situation. If there was a stretch of time where it seemed like every day somebody new was coming forward about somebody else.
Yeah.
Sorry. I derailed us there.
That's okay. I think also with this was, like, every time someone was arrested, they would just kind of, like, name names. And that would be, like, a whole nother frenzy of more people getting arrested. So it was, like, kind of like a exponential, like, you arrest one person and then they tell you 10 more people.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
There you go, pyramid scheme.
The MLM of arrestigating.
An MLM of the witch hunt.
I mean, again, I said this earlier about it, but, you know, the Salem witch trials was very much the same way. Anyone who was being accused, like, well, no, I'm not a witch, but I'll tell you who is.
Yeah.
Or, like, all right, fine. You know what? Somebody had the gall to accuse me. I'm finally taking all these other people down who have ever wronged me. You're going to be in the hot seat next, my friend.
Yep. And since you said the Salem witch trials, I do have some comparison numbers to end us. So the Salem witch trials, and I just pulled this from our episode that we did. So 19 people were executed in the Salem witch trials.
And that was just Salem. That wasn't the only area
correct.
that was suffering from witch hunts.
But I bring that up just because the way, when I first heard about the poison affairs, it was kind of referred to as like France's Salem witch trials that you don't hear about. So in the end, the poison affairs implicated 442 suspects. Of those, 218 people were arrested, 36 people were executed, 5 people were sentenced to the galleys, which meant that you were sentenced to a life on a ship rowing, which is such a specific, horrible sentence. And then 23 people were sentenced to exile, and those numbers exclude anyone who died in custody or died by torture or suicide. France probably is not...
They did it bigger.
They did it bigger.
Than Salem did, at least.
Probably not very proud of that. Not saying that people were not being poisoned, but also probably didn't need to execute or torture that many people.
No, they just needed to investigate the individual deaths better.
Probably just need to do autopsies. Maybe autopsies would
that's
soft things.
Step 1 of the
Do
investigation.
an autopsy on every person that dies.
Be better at science.
Science is our answer. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around, and I hope that one wasn't as
Grim,
sad, and horrible as the last couple ones. I've gotten some suggestions for our live show episode, which I very much appreciate. I'm starting a small list. I really want to run them by you, but then I'm like, I can't because I need it to be a surprise.
Yep.
But
well,
I'm also
you know my thoughts on the matter.
I know, but you also know I'm terrible at making decisions by myself, Katy. Anyways, we already did everything, so
yeah,
I think all we have to say.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.